Oh, I forgot I had that slide. Anatomy of a Destiny. That's what I did quite a long time ago, but I loved it. Is you come as this beautiful little baby. That's you, right?
Yeah.
And then, but you're already born with some programs. For instance, if your grandmother had a problem with depression and she didn't take care of it, so you may have, problems with depression. So you have a genetic programming. It's either, your emotional DNA or past life or whatever you want to believe. It's like when you buy a computer at the store, it already has some programs. So you're born with some programs. Then your environment also kind of programs you. If you're born in Chinatown or Beverly Hills, you're going to have a different environment. The culture you in, your teacher, the religious leader, be it a priest, a rabbi, they're also going to influence you, and the medias. And then archetype. I'm not going to go much into it, but it's like those big cosmic games that we play. And all these beliefs and program makes you vibrate at a certain frequencies. So you attract things like a magnet. Now you can go to a party and I ask different people to take pictures in a party. And somebody is going to take pictures of the food and the happy people dancing. And somebody is going to find the two people that were arguing, right? So you kind of attract what you are into, and you attract the thoughts, and the thoughts are things. To me, it helped me a lot to get that image that thoughts are just floating around, and I can choose which one I want to focus my attention on. And eventually these thoughts produce feelings that produces images in your mind. And because of these feelings and images, you're going to take action or not. And because of your action or inaction, you're going to have the results in your life. Well, you can yourself look at it and see the results in your life. And why do you have these results? Because of the actions or inactions. And why did you do or not do something? Because of the images and feelings you had from the thoughts that you attracted because of your energy that come from all your belief and program. So when I work with people, I try to remove all these beliefs and programs to recover their authentic self and who they truly are. Any question on that?
Nope.
All right, you already know everything.
No, I don't know everything. I'm
Yeah,
familiar with these concepts, which is nice.
yeah, okay.
And it's always a good reminder of things because there's a lot of things that I forget. I studied something at one point a long time ago, maybe, and then I forget.
Yeah, I do the same thing. And also, depending who presents something, you make tiny new distinction that can, set you off, a different course or different direction.
Right, right.
The Wheel of Healing was initially started by Dr. Karen Huffer. She wrote the book Legal Abuse Syndrome. She's a psychotherapist, and she noticed that the people who were going through court just did not get better
Mm.
because they kept going through the same thing over and over. And legal abuse syndrome is a type of PTSD, which I'm quite familiar with. But anyway, I studied with her, and what she did, and then I took her concept and took it a little further. Is I worked with abused women and people abused in the court. And what happened is they could not make the difference between a fact and a feeling. Just so angry, and what the judge is to me, give me some facts, and they could not. So we deconstructed. They say, okay, let's give a title to your day or to an event or something. And actually, the circles have to go one around each other, but it's difficult to do it on a computer. So you put a title, and then you find out the facts. I was in court today at such and such an address. It's a fact. Such and such time. It's a fact. I met with such and such attorney. It's a fact. Okay. Those are facts. Then we go on to the feeling. Okay, how did you feel about being around there? And all the feelings and come out, and we write them all. And then because of that event, or your divorce or your court problem, what did you lose?
Mm.
And they lost faith, they lost trust, they lost credit card, they lost money, they lost their home, their friends, and they got so many losses. And then the last circle is, where is it located in your body? And then when I have all of that, I use the tapping techniques, and we tap on everything to help clear the energy system of all kind of blockages and stagnation.
Hmm. Interesting.
Now, I have another slide on that. I also teach people about loss and trauma, about the three cycles that most people go through when they have a loss. And you can lose a dream, lose a pet, lose a person. And I thought because I knew about it, I was not going to go through it. Well, you know, rude awakening. I had another loss and I went through the cycle. But what it did is help me to see where I was and how to move to the next step. But I still went through it. So you have the loss. Do you know about these three cycles?
I'm not familiar with these three cycles. No.
Okay. So you have a loss, whether you lose your house through a fire, you lose a cherished necklace, or your spouse. That's a loss cycle. And those are when you read that, you go through a shock, denial, sadness, and grief, and mourning. Okay, those are all the feelings you're going to find during that loss cycle.
Okay.
What you don't want to do is panic. Panic is kind of useless. The other feelings, it's good to have, but yeah, no panic. And that it's eventually you accept. You first deny it's not possible. What am I going to do? And finally you accept it, and it can last for 3 days to 3 months usually, till the acceptance. Then you go to a wilderness cycle, and the wilderness cycle has two different phases. The first, that's fear, anger, chaos, anxiety, depression. Some people get stuck there for years and years and years. I just had a friend of mine, her husband died 3 years ago, and she's still crying herself to sleep every night. And a friend of mine was a naturopath. He was dating a woman who was on Prozac and all the antidepressant. Her son had died 25 years ago, and she never went into the acceptance and the mourning. She would talk about her son like he was dead yesterday. And she did not want to get out. She wanted to stay that way. So, people have a choice also.
Right.
But then there is the other part where I don't want to use my mouse. It's not working. So the second part is all of a sudden you kind of wake up, you start exploring, you change your focus, your attitude, and all of a sudden you see there is still life after death. And using your tools, you can use imagery, meditation, the tapping techniques. So you go from fear and anger to having a vision for your life. Eventually you have that transformation cycle where you have a new vision, you see new opportunities, and you really get impatient. You want to get moving with your life, and you create a plan and you go on. So you go from hope to new beginnings. So that cycle of trauma really goes from a death of something to a new birth. Does that make sense to you?
It does.
Yeah. So that's, the tapping, I think you can use it initially in the loss, but I don't think they're going to do much because you do have to do your grieving. If you read the Old Testament, when somebody died, they tore up their clothes, they put ashes on their head. They had professional mourners. Everybody was crying. That whole thing lasted for a month, and then they moved on. And now in our society, we say, oh, you just got to be tough. A client of mine, she was in her 70s, was diagnosed with water around her heart, and she didn't have much longer to live. So I did imagery with her, and it brought her back to when she was in her 20s. She had a baby girl, and the nurse dropped her in the hospital, and they checked the baby. The baby was fine. So she went home, and within 2 weeks, the baby started to scream for 2 hours and died.
Oh, my.
And apparently she had a very slow brain hemorrhage that nobody had picked up on. So what people told her is, you got to be tough, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. And I think the tears accumulated around her heart. And she started to cry and cry and cry. And she lost all that water. And at 70, she went back to college to finish her master's degree in psychology.
Wow.
So Kaizen, it's a slow way to do it. People want to reach goals. And you have, the hare and the tortoise. and you want to go from point A to point B. So let's take you want to lose weight, for instance, and you decide I'm going to lose 30 pounds within 30 days, right? And that's kind of difficult. That's called innovation. I'm going to totally change. I'm going to go from here to there quickly. That's not what happens. You do it for 2 days and you stop, you get a step back, and then you do it again. It's eventually you might arrive, but you have a lot of resistance and frustration, guilt, shame because, oops, I ate another of those Mars bar or another donut or something. I just read something was no, actually it was during a webinar. They say resistance is like the immune system of the mind. You're doing something too fast and you have all that resistance. That's like the immune system that's fighting the change. Or you can be like the tortoise, and it's called the Kaizen way, which means good change. You go step by step by step. Dr. Jim Fannin loves to do everything in 90 seconds, and he talks about that. So he had a client who would put 4 teaspoons of sugar in her tea, and she wanted to be able to drink tea without sugar. And she had tried the innovation way, and it just didn't work. She always fell back. So he told her just remove a quarter of a teaspoon. Every week, you put, a quarter of a teaspoon less. And she did for 3 months. She got rid of 3 teaspoons. She just could not do it with a fourth one. So he told her, you just get 1 grain of sugar out, just 1 grain. It took her a year, and she was able to drink her tea without sugar. So if you diagnose with a catastrophic illness, you've got to change everything right now. I mean, it's a choice too. I mean, you can decide to just, whatever. But if you're not, and people say, I'll never be able to eat like you do, say, no, you just change little by little. If you change one thing a month, you're going to have changed 12 things in a year and 120 things in 10 years. If you want to go faster, you change one thing in a week, you'll have changed 52 things. So step by step and steady, you have far less resistance from your mind if you go that route. So the other way, when you do the slow method, it seems you ahead and you eliminate the path and you know what to do the next step. Without the resistance, you're going to get that intuition. This is the next step I can take. This is the next step I can take. Small steps, small rewards. It resculpts your mind, your brain. We talked about the brain plasticity. By taking little step and being steadfast on little step, you resculpt your brain, and all of a sudden you're going to achieve your plan B. You're going to be there without even realizing it. 2 different ways. 90%, they say, of our action thought come from the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is like the top of the iceberg, right, and all the rest is hidden underneath.
Yep.
And I love that. I had the good fortune of working with psychoanalyst in Switzerland. When I met him at my first seminar on psychoanalysis, he took me under his wing and took me to many different seminars and stuff. So I love to study on that brain. I studied Freud and Jung, and that was fascinating to me. But a lot of time we like a train on a track. We just, day after day, we follow what our subconscious mind tells us to do, and we don't even realize it. We just on one track mind because of that subconscious mind.